My name is Josh Miller. I own Riverstone Kennels, and I've been training gun dogs for more than 16 years. I have field trialed, I've hunt tested, but at the end of the day, I'm a duck hunter. You might find that the duck in our Duck Dogs podcast is spelled uniquely. The UK stands for my British Labs. I love my British Labs. I love what they offer me, both as a part of my family and the high motor in the field. As you're going to find, I have some pretty special dogs. Follow along in our podcast series here as we talk about both in the field hunting and in the field training situations that will hopefully help you progress with your dog at home. Hello again, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of Duck Dogs. I want to thank DUK for bringing you this podcast. DUK Premium Performance Sport 3020 is what I feed my dogs, and I would highly recommend that to anyone out there looking for high-quality food to put your four-legged hunting partner on. DUK Premium Performance Sport 3020. Also, thank you to Sitka Gear. We're heading towards the season. Can't believe it's August already. And, if you're going to stock up, I would say do it. Do it soon because once season starts, people are going to be going crazy because everybody wants the best gear. Sitka is the best gear. Go out, check them out, www.sitkagear.com. So I have kind of a fun episode planned for you here today, and it involves a story that I haven't told. I really haven't told, I guess, this to many people, but it has been a foundationally important story, to me in my life and my career. And it hit me that I should talk about this from last week. I had a client in from out of state who has become a very good friend, and he was in over a course of 3 days, and we were working on, his dog has been with me all summer training, working on him, right? And so I've talked about in the past how it's important to have the right driver, right? So again, I use the Ferrari, analogy that I can throw you the keys to a Ferrari, but if you don't know how to drive a stick shift, that car is not going to go anywhere. It might look pretty, might be capable of great things, but if you can't drive it, it's not going to go anywhere. And so, to his surprise, of the 3 days, the first 2 days, he got to see his dog work, but he did not get to handle his own dog. And the idea behind that's something I've done now for the last couple of years, is it is incredible when you work with your own dog, how emotions take over. And how I really saw this is, I like to do a lot of video content here at the kennel of videoing what dogs are capable of to send to owners, video, so we can go back and watch. And so what I like to do is video, these check-ins. People come in, they work with their dog, I videotape it so then we can go back, because obviously you can only run your dog so many times. Go back in the office and we watch it and we talk about it. And then we rewatch it and we talk about it. It's amazing what you can gather from watching yourself work. Well, what I gathered, which was somewhat of an epiphany moment for me, was when we had an individual a couple years ago that was working with someone else's dog, actually it was my dog, and how we were just working on him, how loose he was, how relaxed he was learning, he was applying. Then you brought his dog into it, and he tensed up, and he was unsure. And the same thing he just ran with my dog flawlessly, he turned and asked me questions of, what word was it again? What am I? He wanted his dog to be perfect so bad that he started, second guessing himself. And now all of a sudden he in this case, wasn't communicating with his dog very well. Okay. So that was way too much backstory, but I think it's all really good stuff. And so anyways, fast forward to last week, where it's a regular routine for me now. You don't get to work with your own dog right away. We're going to work on you. I know what your dog is capable of. I don't know what you're capable of. Okay. And we talked a lot about reading the dog. Okay. especially the more advanced you get, the more important this becomes. You need to be able to read your dog. And so naturally, because he was sitting in a hotel room, he spent a lot of the day with me. And over the course of the day, I would go specifically on social media and I'd start answering questions. And he was pretty shocked, as I'm sure a lot of people would be, at the number of questions that we get coming in specifically over Instagram on a regular basis, on a daily basis. And he made the comment, he's like, man, like, why do you answer some of these? Like some of these were like, can you walk me through how to start obedience, with my dog? Can you, walk me through how do I get my dog, to be more steady? How do I, any tips for blah, 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 right? And I've never thought of it this way, but his comment was, maybe not that I've never thought of it. That might be a stretch, but I rarely think about it. That he's like, I wouldn't call my plumber to ask him how to walk through, fixing, my drain when that's what he does to feed his family. I would pay him to come do it. Dog training is very funny that way. Right? A lot of people don't think that way. But I like helping people, and I spend probably way too much time doing this. And I made a comment, and this is what I'm going to talk about here today. Because he asked if I ever get frustrated with it. The only time I really get frustrated with it is when people ask very detailed question after question after question after question after question, and there's an expectation you can tell on their end that I should be answering, these questions. That's when I do kind of get to the point that's like, well, I've got people that are paying me to do this. This is what I use to feed my family. So, at some point, you got to be like, hey, I've helped you as much as I can help you right now. Which I'm sure doesn't go over well, which I'm sure I'm a bad guy, even though I've helped up to this point. But the comment I made off of that is, what frustrates me is I wish I could teach people how to read. I wish I could teach people how to read. Again, your dog is a book. You have to read it. I'm going to tell you where I got that from. And here's where the story comes along. So many years ago, feels like forever ago, but many years ago, I had a lot of contact with a great mentor of mine named Delmer Smith. Delmer, if you don't know of him, look him up. He is a great person, an iconic dog trainer, gun dog trainer, horse trainer. I mean, I think he could do it all. I mean, he's just a very talented, very special person. I can't tell you how old Delmer is exactly because I think I saw him 3 years in a row. He was 88, 88, then 92. So somewhere I'm going to say in his 90s at this point. And I was very fortunate to have him in my life when I did. Because if you ever look at movies or stories that have like that old mentor that comes at it from very insightful perspective that can help coach you through things when you're frustrated, can make you and really challenge your thoughts. That's what Delmer did for me. And as I think I've talked about in the past, there was a moment of my time in my career that I set out to prove that I could do it all. I proved that I could do it in the retriever, side of things as far as my hunt tests and field trials. And then I went over and did in the pointing dog side of things with field trials, specifically horseback field trials. And I thoroughly enjoyed that time. There was something about getting on a horse for me that calmed me. It was a very peaceful thing for me. I loved training my horses. And I think one of the reasons I loved training my horses so much was because it was still training, but training dogs at this point had become a profession for me, where this was able to take what I felt were my talents and do it in a way that was, maybe selfish, a little more selfish, but it was enjoyment. I didn't have to get this done. I didn't have to get it done in a certain period of time. I didn't have to do it for somebody else, right? So kind of through that, I have a genuine love for horses. Just, love that. So Delmer had told me, and that was like his go-to for me from day one, is he's like, read the dog. Read the dog, read the dog. And when you all of a sudden start to incorporate, horses and all this stuff, like there's a lot more dynamic that gets involved in it. And so during this time, I was actually, it was probably one of my most memorable birthdays that I have to date. I was down, so this is December, mid-December. I'm down in southern Kentucky at a big plantation, and I was there with Delmer, and we were working dogs. And, so I had a real hot shot at the time named Ranger, and Ranger was my first field trial winner as far as the pointy dog side of things. He was extremely talented, and he was an English setter, and I really enjoyed working with him. And so and Delmer loved that dog too. I mean, he oozed talent, so the kind that you can't teach. And so we go out one morning, and again, I've heard this over and over, read the dog, but you're going to see this. This is where it really hits home to me. So we go out. I'm on horseback. I had a horse that I had named Little Man at the time because I got him as a little man. He didn't end up being a little man, but I purchased him when he was little and trained with him and grew him up. And so I had, Ranger on the ground out in front of me, Delmer, certainly not on a horse. He was on, the side-by-side. And Ranger's out working ahead of us, and I come up over the hill, and Ranger's on point. Okay, so I ride up there, and he is in probably to him about chest-high grass, and in one of the most awkward positions I have ever seen a pointy dog stand in. He was all twisted up. He was kind of like, if I can try to paint this picture for you, his body was almost like in a C. His head was pointing almost the opposite way. His eyes were kind of like locked back the other way, but just frozen. Like he certainly had a bird, but frozen. So I ride up, dismount, Delmer, drives up behind, and he had this way of, when he was thinking, he'd kind of cross his arms and kind of sit back. So I get down off Little Man, walk in, and we're not hunting. I have a cap gun just to simulate the shot to keep him steady, through the shot. But walk in, kick around, no bird. Okay, so I'm walking over how I would relocate my pointy dogs. I'd walk over, I'd pet them twice on the shoulder just to keep them calm, tap them on the back of the head, say okay, and let them relocate. So I was going in to do that, and Delmer says, "Josh, stop." Naturally, as you do when your mentor is telling you to do something, you do it very quickly. I look over at him, he goes, "Read the dog." I was like, okay. So I'm watching him, and I'm trying to figure out, okay, where's the wind going? Where do I think, what's his eyes telling me? What's his body telling me? I couldn't read him. He was so awkward and frozen that I could not read him. So I'm trying to use the wind and cheat, right? Because I'm trying to look very intelligent, in front of Delmer. Go to use the wind, kick, nothing. And so I kind of look back at Delmer, and he's like, "Read the dog." And I said, "I am." And what he said next is a thought that just for whatever reason is stuck in the back of my mind. And he said, "Josh, you're looking at him, but you're not reading him." So I look back at him again. Of course, I'm looking at the same dog that I've been looking at for now the last 3-4 minutes. And he's like, "Get back on your horse and read him. So get back on my horse. Now, the reason he told me to get back on my horse, I later found out, is because Delmer knew how comfortable I was on horse. He knew that it was something that just came very natural to me. I did not grow up in a horse family, and he knew that it was just a peaceful thing for me. Okay, so I get up on my horse, and he looks over at me and goes, "Now don't look at him. Read him." So I'm looking, and I go, he doesn't know where they are. Quail, we assume a covey. He doesn't know where the bird is. And he's like, maybe. Or does he know exactly where they are? He had this way of asking you a question that made you think like, am I dumb? But he meant it in the most genuine way. And he was right. Okay? So I sat there a few more seconds, and Ranger did one thing that showed me what was going on. And all that he did was he very slightly tipped his head. I mean, if you weren't watching, you wouldn't have been able to see it. And I looked at Delmer, I was like, are they really there? And he's like, sure seems that way to me. So at this point, I know where the birds are. So I walk up and give Ranger, who again is a young dog, whoa. And I walk in very slowly, and I get to about a step away from him. And the covey blows up from underneath Ranger. Now, what was so neat to me about this was that it put, quite frankly, much more than dogs into perspective for me. Sometimes things aren't always as they seem. And what would have happened if Delmer wasn't there telling me to read the dog? I would have walked in, not understand what was going on, probably too quickly, probably would have had Ranger on edge because I'm completely out of it. Ranger probably would have moved, wanted to break. Now I'm yelling at Ranger, and Ranger's in a very tough position. You might be asking yourself, how does a pointing dog get in that position? I think it's crazy how often people don't understand everything that goes into a dog catching scent. I mean, that he could have, and likely came in from directly wrong wind, directly wrong everything, was on a full sprint, and when he caught scent, it's not like he can go from 50 to 0 right now. And he probably stopped and was so caught up. Now, the covey could have also moved. He might have been very close, but with me being there, the horse being there, us talking, they might have moved, right? But Ranger knew he was way too close, and he was right on top of him. I could have royally screwed that up. I had to read him. Okay? I love that story. I love that story because for me, it just allows me to reflect back and say, are you looking at him? Or are you reading him? Because there's a major difference between the two. So now, because this is such a foundational piece of my life, I want to actually thank Gundog Supply. Gundog Supply, your one-stop shop for all of your hunting and training needs. And also Lucky Duck. Go check out the 5-star crash test rated, both intermediate and large, Lucky Duck Kennel. We love them. The fans, the covers, make sure you are all geared up here heading into the season is the safest way to travel. Now, I've taken this foundational piece of my career now, as far as reading the dog, looking at the dog as a book. And I have now taken that to, I believe, another level. Because it is amazing to me, let's rewind back to the beginning. How my buddy would he saw all the questions that I was getting, right? That we always get on social media. And it is incredible how often the question is, you can just tell they're wanting to get to the end too fast. Okay? They're wanting to get to that finished product too fast. They are not enjoying the process. They are not reading the book correctly. Okay? So now I'm gonna spin this a little bit because I love the book analogy. I'm gonna spin this a little bit. Let's look at a dog's life, whether it's his life or his training life. Let's look at that as a book. What happens when you're on chapter 4 of a book and you're like, who is this character? Or like, why is this going on? Okay. Well, go reread the previous chapter and figure it out. Because chapter 4 is never going to make sense if you don't remember what happened in chapter 3. Sound familiar? What about the reader itself? If you are not a good reader, you can't spell out words, you can't string sentences together, you can't retain what you are reading, the story will never make sense. That's why I think dog training is so underappreciated. A lot of people can get a dog to sit, can get a dog to come, can get a dog to retrieve. But you start going through and really pushing not just one dog, but dog after dog after dog after dog to very high levels. It takes a talent to do that. And more times than not, it's because that trainer is a very good reader. It's amazing what that can do. Where I go with the chapter part of it, of rereading chapters, the common trend I continue to see, and I'm sure we'll always continue to see, is everybody wants to skim over chapters 1 and 2, which I'm going to call on and off lead obedience. They want to skim that stuff over because it is not sexy. It is not fun. I can't go on Instagram and put a big water entry picture or a blind retrieve video or something like that doing this. Right? This isn't fun. I don't want to show this off. But all of the rest of your chapters will not make sense if you skip over those. Think about that. If you just pick up any book and you just open up to chapter 7 and you're like, I'm going to start reading right now. Will it make any sense at all? Will it be enjoyable? Are you going to look forward to what that ending looks like? It is a process. So not only do you have to read the dog, be able to read the dog, but also understand each chapter and make sure your dog understands each chapter before you move on, or the story will never be what you want it to be. I love that. I absolutely love that. I think it should, I think, hit home with so many people that no one's going to read this book for me. I need to do it. Right? And the way one writer writes is different than a different writer. Right? You're still reading, but you may have to read it in a different mindset, in a different light, absorb it differently. Let's look at sequels. You loved your first book, which was your first dog. Okay? You got all the way to the end of that book, and unfortunately for all of us, we have to close that back cover on the book, on our dog's life. The worst part of the whole thing. Now, if you've gone through and wrote that book correctly, read and wrote that book correctly, your dog is a pretty cool story. One that you can always reflect back on. One that you can always appreciate. But if you start writing this next book thinking you're going to, start off, where chapter, 8, 9, 10 was with your last dog, because those are now your expectations, you're going to be sadly mistaken. You have to start back at 0. When I'm reflecting back on questions, and so many of these questions have come in recently. It's amazing how often I have people that say, well, my last dog didn't do this. Well, my last dog was easier. My last dog, there are so many factors. There are so many factors that play into this. It is incredible how often people say, well, my last dog, he seemed to learn faster. And I go, okay, well, tell me about your life back then. Well, I was a single guy going to college, graduated college, trying to kind of feel my way out through, first couple of years of her career. I was, living by myself. I had a bunch of free time. Yeah. Now what's your life like? Well, now we got 3 kids. I'm the VP of a bank, which pulls me off a lot. Like, you see where I'm going with this? Your dog may not have learned faster. You just had more time dedicated to him. Your expectation is still the same, which is unfair to this new dog. I know I'm getting pulled off from the weeds here a little bit. I'm kind of rambling just because, these are some questions, that have come up. But it's just like, here's where I'm going. I love, don't look at it, read it. I love that. And to me, what that tells me is, kind of how it translates over to a lot of these questions, right? Don't just say it. You got to believe it. I had a client here probably about a month ago now who, I've trained 2 or 3 dogs for him now. All these dogs have been great, right? And now he has a dog that is going to be great. I know she's going to be great. But she's going a little slower than the last couple did. And he's frustrated. He's like, I was really hoping she'd be further along, really hope, right? And my comment to him was, you have told me through our entire, relationship together, you've made comments like, oh, there's never a sure thing with dogs, and you got to go at their pace, and that some dogs just they don't work out. Every dog is different. Every dog goes at different speed. All this stuff. You've said all that stuff as long as I've known you. But it's easy to say that when everything's going right. It's easy to say that and be in that bandwagon in that camp when you don't have to deal with the issue. Now all of a sudden you do, and you're frustrated. You were saying it, you didn't believe it. It's amazing. Read it. Read your dog. Read the situation. Read the hunt. Read the room. Read it. Don't just look at it. Read it. Hope you guys have a great week. I really hope that this that you guys like this, because this has really been a big part of my life. This thought, and maybe somebody out there needed to hear this. So, hope you guys have a great week. Hope you guys enjoy the weekend, and we will talk with you next week. Thanks for listening. Be sure to follow us on Facebook and Instagram. Leave us a review on iTunes, and a special thank you to DUK, because without them, we couldn't do what we do here, bringing this information to you.